let's learn about unions. Now, to show you how this works, I have taken our characters table and I have split it into two parts. And I believe the name is quite self-descriptive. There is a separate table now for characters who are alive and a separate table for characters who are dead. And you can look at the previous lecture to see how I've done this, how I've used a query to create two new tables. But this is exactly the characters table with, the same schema, the same columns, the same times. It's just split in two based on the is alive column. Now let us imagine that we do not have the fantasy.characters table anymore. We do not have the table with all the characters because it was deleted or we never had it in the first place. And let's pretend that we only have these two tables now, characters alive and characters dead. And we want to reconstruct the characters table out of it. We want to create a table with all the characters. How can we do that? Now what I have here are two simple queries: select star from fantasy characters alive and select star from fantasy characters dead. So these are two separate queries, but actually in BigQuery there are ways to run multiple queries at the same time. So I'm gonna show you first how to do that. Now an easy way to do that is to write your queries and then add a semicolon at the end. And so what you have here is basically a SQL script which contains multiple SQL statements, in this case two, and if you hit run, all of these will be executed sequentially. And when you look at the results, so you're not just getting a table anymore because it's not just a single query that has been executed, but you can see that there have been two commands that have been executed, which are here. And then for each of those two, you can simply click View Results and you will get to the familiar Results tab for that. And if I want to see the other one, I will click on the back arrow here and click on the other View Results, and then I can see the other one. Another way to handle this is that I can select the query that I'm interested in and then click Run. And here I see the results. So BigQuery has only executed the part that I have selected. Or I can decide to run the other query in my script, select it, click Run, and then I will see the results for that query. And this is a pretty handy functionality in BigQuery. It's also a functionality that might give you some headaches if you don't know about it, because if for some reason you selected a part of the code during your work and then you just want to run everything, you might hit run and get an error here because BigQuery is only seeing the part that you selected and cannot make sense of it. So it's good to know about this. But our problem has not been solved yet, because remember, we want to reconstruct the characters table, and what we have here are two queries, and we can run them separately and we can look at the results separately, but we still don't have a single table with all the results. And this is where union comes into play. Union allows me to stack the results from these two tables. So if I first I will take off the semicolons because this will become a single statement. And then in between these two queries, I will write union distinct. And when I run this, you can verify for yourself, we have 15 rows and we have indeed reconstructed the characters table. So what exactly is going on here? Well, it's actually pretty simple. SQL is taking all of the rows from this first query and then all of the rows for the second query, and then it's stacking them on top of each other. So you can really imagine the act of horizontally stacking a table on top of the other to create a new table which contains all of the rows of these two queries combined. And that, in short, is what union does. Now, there are a few details that we need to know when working with union. And to figure them out, let us look at a toy example. So I've created two very simple tables, toy1 and toy2, and you can see how they look in these comments over here. They all have three columns, which are called imaginatively call 1, call 2, call 3, and then this is the toy 1 table, and then this is the toy 2 table. Now, just like before, we can combine these tables by selecting all of them and then writing a union in between them. Now, in BigQuery, you're not allowed to write union without a further qualifier, a keyword, and it has to be either all or distinct. So you have to choose one of these two. And what is the choice about? Well, if you do union all, you will get all of the rows that are in the first table and those that are in the second table, regardless of whether they are duplicate. Okay? But with union distinct, you will get, again, all of the rows from the two tables, but you will only consider unique rows. You will not get any duplicates. Now we can see that these two tables share a column which is actually identical. One true yes over here and the same row over here. Now, if I write union all, I expect the result to include this row twice. So let us verify that. And you can see that here you have one true yes, and at the end you also have one true yes. And in total you get 4 rows, which are all the rows in the two tables. However, if I do union distinct, I expect to get 3 rows, and I expect this row to appear only once and not to be duplicated. Again, you need to make sure you're not selecting any little part of your script before you run it, so the whole script will be run. And as you can see, we have 3 rows and there are no duplicates. Now, it's interesting that BigQuery actually forces you to choose between all or distinct, because in many SQL systems, for your information, you are able to write union without any qualifier, and in that case, it means union distinct. So in other SQL systems, when you write union, it is understood that you want union distinct. And if you actually want to keep the duplicate rows, you will explicitly write union all. But in BigQuery, you always have to explicitly say whether you want union all or union distinct.